You're listening to the Wrigleyville Nation podcast. Here's your hosts, Jeromy and Pat.
Hello and welcome to the Wrigleyville Nation podcast. This is episode 388 of the podcast. My name is Jeromy Deemer and I'll be your host. I'm joined as always by my co-host. He's my cousin and he's high atop Wrigleyville tonight. How's it going, Pat?
It's going great, Jeromy. Welcome to fall, by the way. It's the first officially cold night of the year. I had to wear a sweatshirt outside just a minute ago.
I refuse to give in. I am not ready to have any. I see Oktoberfest beers out. I'm not ready. I'm not doing it yet. I'm still enjoying summer.
I will tell you, Jeromy, it feels a lot like playoff baseball in the air right now.
However, after the week that was, I feel a lot better about playoff baseball. We'll get into all the happenings of the week. We'll look ahead at the week that will be. And to help us break down all things Cubs this week, you know him from his work at Northside Baseball. Of course, his many appearances here. Matt Trueblood, thanks for taking time out to talk Cubs with us tonight.
Always, no matter the weather.
Is it cold in Minnesota yet?
I wouldn't say by our standards, but we've had that same chill in the air. I love it, man.
Well, what I love is the Cubs doing better against the Brewers than I anticipated. We were very bearish going into the series against Milwaukee. However, the Cubs take 3 of 5 against the Brewers. That 5-game series that we said was so important. I was at that Monday game where they lost 7-0. Mm-hmm. Cade Horton leaves the game with a blister, and it may have been my low point of the season. I was like, oh, well, this is over. No Cade Horton. He's going to be gone for weeks. And the Cubs getting Freddie Peralta'd, and then the offense continues to struggle, and they lose 7-0. Thank goodness for that doubleheader.
I was going to say the low point for me, Jeromy, was that night because I got at the last minute tickets to go to the nightcap after what you just went through, and of course it turned pitch black at 5 p.m. and just downpoured the whole time, and never even stepped foot in the stadium. Only to find out the game was being remade for the following morning when I could not attend. So, yay.
And yes, the next 2 games the Cubs did win. Matthew Boyd pitching, Cubs win 6-4, and Jameson Tayo pitching against Woodruff. And while, again, 4-1, the victory there, the Cubs offense still not to the levels it was earlier in this season, but what a difference it made sitting Kyle Tucker and then getting to see some Owen Casey. Matt, we'll start with you. Your thoughts on Owen Casey having a day in that doubleheader?
Yeah, he's been impressive, man. I think it was past due to give Tucker a reset, or at least to start just resting him more regularly. And you saw Craig Counsell slowly move him into the DH role more often, and it's clear they were managing something. We found out what, obviously, but that was clear all along. And to finally get a chance to actually set Casey loose for a day or two was nice. I guess I understand why it's hard politically in that clubhouse to put him in instead of Happ or Tucker or whomever, but while you got him up here, you got to see if he can be a catalyst. That's what it's supposed to be a really good team, is every now and then when you've got the struggling veteran, you do trust the rookie. And I've been surprised how long it's taken Craig Counsell to embrace that idea. I'm not all that high, or, I haven't been all that high on Casey's long-term future myself, but he's come up here and shown a swing that can do very real damage. And you had a couple of guys in the lineup for a while who can't. So it was great to finally just say at this particular moment, we all know that that's not how it works. It's not going to be that way for the next 6 months or 6 years necessarily. But at this particular moment, he's the better player. And then he produced like it.
Pat, we heard about the fracture, the injury that Kyle Tucker had. I was disappointed, as a longtime Cubs fan, to hear about Cubs management letting players play through injuries and not sitting them to get healthy. That's something that we've had to deal with a lot.
It is frustrating after the fact when, like last year, was it over the winter? They're like, oh, by the way, Dansby Swanson was playing with a shredded rib cage for half the season. Therefore, when the Cubs were flailing and falling out of contention for a playoff spot, and he was having so much difficulty, it was because of an injury. I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of on the team in conjunction with the player to figure out, right? And if they're not going to, I don't like the excuse making after the fact. Well, he had a broken hand. How was he supposed to play? Oh, then don't play him, right? That's the. I remember witnessing this phenomenon years ago. Whenever Roger Clemens would have a down season, it was because he was hurt. But whenever he pitched well, he was healthy. Like it was like a miracle. It's like, he didn't have a lot of down seasons, but when he did, it's like, oh, he was pitching through injuries the whole year. It's like, okay. So, I mean, make up your mind, right? Like either play a guy because he's healthy and is contributing, or if he's injured and struggling and unable to contribute, then don't, right? I mean, get him healthy. This whole hero thing, like, oh, I'm going to gut it out and not hit a home run for 2 months. That's not gutting it out. That's tanking your team, right? And the team the team management, needs to be in a position. I can see a player, especially in Milwaukee, you're not wanting to not play, but that's where the team management has to say, okay, well, look, this is what we have to do. So it is frustrating. That said, to continue your point about the Brewers and Cassie, I was able to go to the Wednesday game after your doubleheader, where the Cubs continued with their magic streak. I think at one point, the Cubs had one hit. I think Michael Busch had the only hit in the game. It was like the 7th inning, which was fine because it was a 3-run double after like 2 walks and hit by pitch. So and the Cubs did, despite Palencia having a shaky 9th inning. I think Brad Keller had like his 20th hold of the year or something. These guys, amazing this year. And I can say that I was actually witness to the moment when the Cubs finally put the knife in the backs of the Brewers and ended this whole divisional race once and for all. I think we can all admit, Matt, I mean, I'll get your thoughts on this, but I think we can all agree at this point that the Brewers are now focused on the wild card and who they might play, and holding on to a wild card for starters, but then who they'll play in the wild card, because the Cubs basically announced that they were running away with things. Also winning the home field advantage. Cubs finally have a tiebreaker for the first time in 3 years in a playoff scenario. So that's helpful as well. But to do that to the Brewers, and then what happened is, and I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but as the week transpired that weekend, just further, the exclamation mark on the week. Looks like the Cubs are in the driver's seat.
Before we get to the weekend, we'll finish the Brewers series here. You're right, after a shaky outing from Palencia, the Cubs do hang on to win that game 4-3. Matt Shaw with another home run. There's a guy who, since July 18th, Marquee Sports tells us that Matt Shaw has a .298 average, 1035 OPS, 9 home runs, 18 RBIs.
Making some nice plays at third base, by the way.
Some great highlight reel plays.
I think it was like the Sunday game against the Angels. He made a couple super nice plays. And even on a ball where he had to kind of go, I think he was down the line and deep and then throw to first, he's perfected, with the inability to throw to first base in the air. He's perfected the ability to one bounce the ball pretty well. Yeah, so hey, whatever works, whatever gets you there. If you have to shoot your free throws underhanded, go for it. I don't care. But he's really and he's got that patented move where he dives to his left. And either catches balls on the flies or he grabs a sharp hit ball and jumps up and throws to first, and has been, defensively as well as offensively, which is good because the guy sitting next to him is having more shaky defensive games than I would prefer. But yeah, Shaw has been a real revelation, and frankly, without Shaw's second half performance, as poorly as everyone else has hit, the Cubs could have been in a much bigger world of hurt than they were without him. He really helped. He's basically carried the team for a month as a rookie.
That's right. You've got two rookies really stepping up with Cade Horton and Matt Shaw, both performing incredibly well. The Brewers have the favorite right now for Rookie of the Year, but guys that are having two guys in the conversation of having very impressive rookie seasons is I can't remember the last time we had that kind of situation.
Well, and frankly, I mean, I know it's early and whatnot, but is dominating as Mizorowski can look at times. Cade Horton has had better results. Now, you can argue with the peripherals and say, well, he doesn't strike out enough people, or, he's not this or that, but he doesn't give any runs, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I think there should be some value placed on somebody who doesn't give up runs. We watched Kyle Hendricks not give up runs for almost a decade. It was fun, right, to watch. And so far this year, and also he's pitched like quite 3 times as many innings as Mizorowski too, and has a much better ERA, et cetera. I mean, I think Cade Horton is a real sleeper, and I think it's because he doesn't get the same respect, and maybe it will catch up to him. But Justin Steele's kind of been dogged by this his whole career too. Like nobody actually he pitches like a Cy Young Award winner, and they're like, we'll give him third place. His ERA might be the best, and he might have the best WHIP, and he might have the best record, but come on, he just doesn't feel like his stuff is good enough. So whatever. But Cade Horton has definitely impressed.
Yeah, and I think Horton actually, he has a similar thing to Steele, where a lot of what makes him special is the cut on his fastball, which we heard about from with Justin Steele for years. It's the same thing, only Horton throws a couple miles an hour harder. Now, he's a righty, so you'd want him to for that same formula to work, but it does. It works in the same way with Steele, where he's probably not going to lead the league in strikeouts or even come especially close. What he can do is induce a whole bunch of weak contact and get a lot of outs that feel like, if you grew up, too much with sabermetrics in your head and were told, dips theory, whether pitchers give up hits once the ball's in play is basically luck and defense and all that. If you buy into that too much, which is certainly possible, you're going to underrate Cade Horton. He can actually limit and negotiate opponents' contact. And just like Justin Steele, just like sometimes Javier Assad can do the same thing, the Cubs believe that they've locked in on a way to systematically help pitchers do that in a way that's not just luck or, depending on a good defense behind him. Now, obviously, they put a good defense behind him to maximize those guys.
I feel like it's always a safe play to have a good defense just in case.
Right. Well, and it's just good defense helps. The Brewers they've won the Team Gold Glove Award each of the last 2 years, I think, and they've got a chance to do it again. That's the team you're trying to beat out. You want to have that same, anytime the ball goes out there, the other team feels bad about it. That's a good thing to do. But it doesn't mean that Horton and guys like him aren't valuable in themselves, because look at the other end of the spectrum. You can put an all-world defense. You can put Brooks Robinson at third and Pete Crow Armstrong in center and whoever else you want behind Ben Brown.
It's not going to help Ben Brown, right?
Yeah. So, it does matter who that pitcher is and what kind of contact they're creating and what they're not giving up.
The Cubs did lose the finale.
Which, in fairness, often happens after you clinch a division. the next day. You rest most of your starters and you kind of take it easy. I mean, they didn't technically clinch it, as we know, right? There's still plenty of baseball to be played, blah, 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 cliche.
It is very hard.
Caveat, but I think we all know that was the day the race ended, right?
Yeah. I actually looked this up, and neither in baseball history, no team has clinched their division before August 31st, and no team has clinched the division when they were trailing by several games.
Really?
I was surprised but yeah, never happened.
It's what we call a figurative clinch as opposed to a literal clinch, Matt. I don't want to get into linguistic devices here, but I think we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, the finale was frustrating too because you had a good outing from Shota, going 7 innings. It was 2-1 at that point for the Brewers, and then the bullpen comes in and Brazier gives up a few more runs, and just the way this offense is, and the way the Brewers bullpen can just close out the game quickly. That's exactly what happened here in the finale. Cubs lose 4-1, but I think for the Cubs winning the 5-game series 3-2, that's a huge accomplishment for them. I think we had a Brewers preview last week, and they were like, don't want to get swept. No, we're coming back to earth. Don't want to get swept. And they got a couple games out of it. I think everybody was okay going into this weekend where the Cubs were playing Anaheim. And we really wanted to see the Cubs try to sweep, if not, 2 of the 3 worst case scenario. But
we talked about what would happen if the Cubs won 4 out of 5, or even possibly 3 out of 5. But we were worried the Cubs were going to win 4 out of 5 and then go to Anaheim.
Yeah,
and just kind of like with the momentum,
West Coast weirdness,
gone. You're out there, you're relaxing in the California sun, and then drop 2 out of 3. That was, when we were predicting the week at 6-3. That's kind of how we had it predicted, but. So masterstroke by counsel to drop that last game. So it was not against the Brewers. So it was not team, kind of overly self-confident going into the Angels. And that's the stuff that you don't see in the box score, right? It's the stuff that it's the behind the scenes, like how you manage your teams personality wise and stuff. So good on counsel for being able to pull that off.
40 chess.
Yes. So in the first game against Anaheim, we had a good outing from Javier Assad. Matt Assad was a little bit shaky coming back, but has had a couple of good outings now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if he was that shaky coming back. What he was who Javier Assad is. Mm-hmm. And I love watching that dude pitch. And I'm not sure that I'm not sure the Cubs are the right team. I'm not sure the team exists in the modern game to get the most out of him. Because here's what Javier Assad does well. He pitches incredibly well with runners on base, and he gets better as his outings go along. He has a lower opponent OPS by a significant margin the 3rd time through the order than the first 2 times.
He's opposite Ben Brown.
He's the opposite of Ben Brown in many ways. He also, I think there are something like 250 pitchers who had reached a certain threshold that I checked for, a number of batters faced with runners on base over the last 25 years. And Assad is 7th on that list in opponent OPS. It's like Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer, bunch of great relievers.
Steve Carlton, Jim Palmer, Mariano Rivera, and
it doesn't make any sense, but he's been doing it now for 3 full years, and he keeps, he gets hurt, and he gets sent to the minors, and his role gets changed, and he gets sent to the minors again, and he just keeps coming back and doing that same thing. When you ease him back in with 4-inning starts, you actually lose out on a little bit of the value Javier Assad can give you, because probably if you left him out there for 2 more innings, they were going to be goose eggs. And now that's what we saw against the Angels on over the weekend. But he's it's remarkable how he competes and he creates, and he does not have overwhelming stuff, but he also doesn't have bad stuff. He's got the whole kitchen sink. He knows how to use it, and he knows when to go exactly to what the opposing batter's not expecting in a clutch moment. It's something that is hard to wrap your head around. Again, as I said with Horton, if you grew up when I grew up and all the talk was about we need to start focusing on strikeouts and walks, and maybe limiting home runs, that's what pitchers can control. There are some pitchers who can control more than that, and Javier Assad's one of them, and it is a thing of beauty when he's just healthy enough to go out there. Actually, I say it's a thing of beauty. Sometimes it's really, really ugly in the way it goes, because there will be so much traffic, and you're like, it feels like an old, maybe even a Rick Russell start, which could be a thing of beauty, but it was awkward beauty because he'd scatter singles and walks throughout the game, but he'd still be out there come the seventh inning.
He was graceful as hell. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah. So it's just, I love that. And I hope that they do find a way to maximize his value down the stretch here, which probably means getting him that start every time through the rotation to keep stretching it out and easing the innings burden on everyone else. That's the biggest thing he can do for this team, and he's done it incredibly well over just a few appearances.
Well, and it allows them the opportunity to have 6 starters at times.
Yep.
Because, especially when you don't have a day off, which they have Monday off, but then they're going to go on a stretch where they don't. Imanagi did miss some time, so he's probably not as bad as it would be, but certainly Boyd with his injury history and Cade Horton being a rookie and Tyon with just coming off an injury and even Assad, it's kind of nice to spread it out a little bit so that maybe these guys have something left in the tank come October. And so that's helpful. It also reminds me of this idea that I have in my head that I never really articulate. We have WAR, right? Your wins above replacement. But then there's in reality for this team this year, WAR, right? So the Assad injury probably has cost the Cubs in the neighborhood of 5 wins this year, right? Just because it's what they had in lieu of him, not a replacement player, but of a low replacement player, and just how it's taxed the bullpen to have a 5th starter for months in a row who can generally, whoever that 5th starter was, right, could generally only pitch a couple innings, sometimes 2 innings, maybe 3, 4 if you're lucky, 5 on a good day, and give up a lot of runs and lose games. And then you'd have to go to your bullpen and the extra wear and tear on those guys, which is starting to show itself for some of the guys who had these great starts this year, but I think I've kind of run out of gas a little bit. They were not expecting him to be out as long as he was, obviously, as well. And it kept lingering and re-injuring. And so they never bothered to replace him. And then the Tyon injury occurred, and then they were really in a bad spot, right? And Colin Ray has been yeoman-like in his efforts. I can't say enough about how he's gutted it out as an average, below average, maybe slightly below average pitcher, pitching above his head when they really needed him to. And now maybe you look at it and you say, okay, well, Tyon's pitching well. Straight out of the gate since the injury. He had a rest, which is good, for a month, 2 months. And now you've got Assad, and maybe they're turning a corner here when it comes to the back end of the rotation. The front end of the rotation has been great all year, but it's that 5th spot that's just been a killer for them. I mean, you can only have so many bullpen games in a week, and they've had to do that multiple times for multiple months in a row. And I feel like the combination of those two has really, one of the reasons why I think the Cubs are now the favorites to win the division.
The Cubs bullpen, as we saw in that Assad game, they bring in guys who aren't Keller and Palencia, and they give up runs. A lot of times it's Kittredge. It was in that game, and then luckily Keller and Palencia were there to close it out. That middle section of the bullpen is always rough, but a good week for Palencia. He got himself 4 saves this week, so good to see that. Good to see Keller solidifying that 8th inning role, getting those holds you mentioned earlier, Pat. And But man, it can be scary getting from a good starting pitching performance to the back end of that bullpen.
And I don't even blame Palencia really for not getting the save on Saturday with the 12-1 win, because he would have had to pitch
Sure.
3 innings, and it just didn't seem like it was worth it, making him pitch 3 straight innings after he pitched so many days in a row. But yeah, what another example of an area where the Cubs did get very fortunate this year. They slopped together a bullpen, and Palencia was not the first choice as closer. He was not the second choice as closer. Charitably, he was the third choice. Third to fourth, depending on, at that point, I think they were just trying anything out. But thank God he's there, because without him, this would have been a much rougher season. And we've experienced those seasons, right? The last couple of years, where we know exactly what it's like not to have a closer.
Yeah. I mean, I think they could have, if he hadn't emerged the way he had, they may have needed to and elected to shop more aggressively at the deadline.
Asking price is really high, and we don't want to give up prospects, and money's
Lord
tight.
knows. And look, one of the people that they checked in on multiple times and were actually interested in, on whom they found the asking price way too high, was Yohan Duran from the Twins. And yeah, I mean, part of it is Jed Hoyer's a scaredy cat. But
good
part of it
is we can't afford a good player. They cost a lot of money, and they cost a lot of draft capital / prospect capital.
But another part of it is also that they gave him the luxury of being able to say, okay, the price is too high here.
They did. Yeah, he did.
Valencia hadn't been there, that's a whole different conversation.
Right.
And he's been great. Keller's been great. Jeromy, you have to learn. Please join me in this trust tree with Caleb Thielbar. He has earned your faith, man. So those 3 are the ones that I think you can feel pretty good when the door opens and those guys come in. The rest,
Ryan here, door is closed.
Yeah. Well, there you go. It's I'm surprised they haven't leaned more into Ben Brown as a short reliever. We've talked about that multiple times this year.
Multiple times over the years, for God's sake, right?
They moved into the bullpen, and they still just have him pitching 3-4 innings at a time. And I'm like, that's not the version of this guy that's ever going to find success. Or at least when I say ever this season.
This season, for sure.
He's going to have to go into a lab somewhere and add an extra pitch and do a bunch of different things before he'll be successful as a starter. If you want him to help you this year, you got to have him just snorting and sweating and throwing 15 pitches at a time. And it's baffling to me that they haven't figured that out, but they haven't. So yeah, we have to spend quite a bit of time figuring out what the right place to slot in Andrew Kittredge and Ryan Brazier and Taylor Rogers and Drew Pomerantz are.
Oof. When you list them all in order, it doesn't make me feel good at all.
It's a lot of years that stack on top of each other. Those 3 guys are those 4 guys are like 140 combined.
The Saturday game you mentioned, Pat, was a blowout, 12-1. The story of that game was the reemergence of Kyle Tucker. He comes out, has his first multi-home run game as a Chicago Cub. And
hard to believe, right? I felt like in April he had 2 home runs every game. I don't know what happened.
Felt like a lot of home runs early in April and May. But yeah, so it was a good victory there. And then we closed the series out getting to see an old friend, getting to watch Kyle Hendricks pitch. Now, I will admit I have not watched a single Kyle Hendricks game pitch this season. I don't watch a lot of Anaheim Angels baseball, so I did not see him pitch. He didn't when they came to Wrigley. He did not pitch, so I did not get to see him. So this is my first time seeing him as an Angel, and it was fun to watch. Exactly the outcome that I wanted.
Well, Jeromy, I've always viewed him as an Angel, even when he was a Cub.
Did you?
In my eyes, but a different type of Angel. As someone who watches no more Angels games than you, I can say I was struck by, it was very Kyle Hendricks in that he late years Kyle Hendricks, where he pitched pretty well, sort of for the most part. But then like, a guy got on second with 2 outs, and then a base hit, he scored. That kind of stuff. And then at tic tac, here's a run, there's a run, and then the bullpen comes in and does him no favors and gives up all of his inherited runners.
Andrew Chafin of all guys.
yeah, Andrew Chafin. Okay, so he ends up with like 4 1/3 innings and 4 earned runs, right? So it doesn't look so pretty, right? In real life. I also thought that Mike Trout didn't look as good as I remembered him either.
No.
Boy, he looks bloated and slow with the swing. So that was not great. On the plus side, in addition to Kyle Tucker, it was nice to see some of the other Cubs, like PCA, got the big home run off Kelsey Jansen. You can't forget that on Friday night. I mean, I thought when that game went into the 9th inning, after the Cubs blew the lead there, I'm like, oh, man, this is not going to end well. And then he came through with that huge clutch home run. So that was great, top of the 9th.
He was struggling, too. He needed
he did.
I felt like I hadn't seen a PCA home run in a long time.
Yeah, you really hadn't. So that I think really energized him and charged him up. And then, of course, in the 12-1 game, everybody was doing their part in that game, which was nice to see. But in addition to Kyle Tucker, it was nice to see Bush, and it's also nice to see Willie Castro, get some hits here. As much as people like him, his Cubs career kind of got off to a slow start, very slow start. And he started to pick it up. And then, of course, you got to give a special shout out for unsung hero of the year, Reese McGuire, of all people, right? The guy who was on the verge of getting cut, and we begged the Cubs not to cut him, but to keep him and to go with 3 catchers at least for a little while when Amaya came back. And thank God they did, because Amaya lasted less than a game, went back on the IL, and the Cubs could have in the course of 24 hours lost both Amaya and Reese McGuire, and that would have been devastating. He's just been fantastic for a journeyman off the bench, a Donnie Murphy type season. I'll take it, right? Like just give us high quality impact in a small sample size, and we will never expect him to do it again. We will not rely on him, Jed, to be like a starting catcher or even a 80 game a year or anything catcher ever again, right? We're just going to play it out this year, and we're going to count ourselves lucky. But he had another big game, and so it's nice to see the offense finally start to kind of move in the right direction. Ian Happ even got on base a few times. Lots of great things were happening. So, that's my recap of the Angels series.
That Donnie Murphy reference is one for the sickos. Nicely done there. That's
nice. Yeah, I just threw that out there.
Yeah.
So, I think the last time, it's been a while. I was trying to remember the last time the Cubs had a sweep of a series. It feels like that's been forever as well. Probably back to sometime in July, maybe at their earliest.
Well, they swept the Brewers. I mean, in a doubleheader, I guess.
No, yeah, like a whole series. Yeah, like I feel like it's.
I think you call that a figurative sweep, right?
Yeah, right. Strategically losing the first and last game for motivational purposes.
Even earlier this year, though, I think when they were playing quite well, it felt like they were
the third game every week. Every series they blow that third game, right?
Yeah. So they didn't win for like 3 out of 4 Sunday through April and May. They never won on a Sunday. Yeah, it was.
It helps to play against a really bad team sometimes. It really does.
They never played on Thursday, and they never won on Sunday.
Yeah. Well, looking ahead, so the MLB standings as of the time of this recording on a Monday night, the Brewers have a 5-game lead over the Cubs in the division.
It was 9 games just a few days ago.
It definitely was. The Brewers 4-6 over their last 10 games. The Cubs are 8-2, and so that helps make up some games. The Los Angeles Dodgers and San Diego Padres are tied atop the NL West. So Cubs are your first wild card at the moment. A Dodger or Padre would fill that second spot, and the New York Mets are the third spot. The Cincinnati Reds annoyingly hanging around a game and a half behind the New York Mets.
Yeah, I mean, the Reds, they've got to get to 83 wins somehow, right? That's every year for them.
Every year.
So
the
enough for them. And by the way, the Cubs will play the Reds in short order in a couple weeks, and that may be it for the Reds if they don't do well.
Right.
Because we're running out of days, right, in games, right? So I think the Cubs play them in a 4-game series at Wrigley. Am I right? Yeah.
No,
I'm
it's
right.
at Cincinnati.
Oh, is it?
Yes, it's the 18, 19,
Oh, you're right.
20, and 21
Yeah.
of September. They will play at Cincinnati.
That's right. And so when they do that, that will, I mean, they'll probably be out of it by then anyway, hopefully. But if not, even if the Cubs split the series, they're done, right? Because they're so many games back. I mean, for the division, we'll be in first place. But yeah, the Reds are one of those teams that actually scares me in a playoff series because when healthy, they have a number of good starting pitchers.
yeah, you would
right?
not want to run into
Peters,
Green.
Lodolo, and Abbott or whatever. No,
Right.
no, thank
Right.
you.
No,
And if
not in a
Ellie
random
gets
series.
on a hot streak or whatever, it's like, yeah, I mean, they've got good starting pitching, which concerns me for next year. I just hope they fumble it, with the offense and whatever else they do. But they'll find a way. But yeah, that's not a team you want to play in a playoff series. Who do you want to play in a playoff series, by the way? Of all the teams we just mentioned, who's the most vulnerable, do you think, in a 3-game series?
I always say there's no team you want to play in a playoff series.
No, it's
Right.
random. It's all random.
Yeah.
Could be
Because
anything.
But you got to play somebody.
I'd rather just sit it out. It's too stressful. No, I think the Mets are bleeding a little bit, and I think they do still make the playoffs, but they're a team whom you'd feel pretty comfortable and confident against.
Especially if you're
Otherwise-
at home, right? Against them.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that helps anytime, and
But them in
I am
particular.
I'm never a fan of playing the Mets because then you have to deal with the history of the Cubs and the Mets, and you have to deal with Mets fans, and
Yeah.
those are unpleasant things.
I remember the
So,
2015 series when we had to play them. That was
Yes.
pretty awful.
I
I was
I-
there.
very, I've left Twitter behind now. It's fine. Those scars are healed. Those tweets are deleted. But I did predict Cubs in 4 and took literally years of guff for that for that particular call, which I still say was right. It's just the Mets in October. So
By the way, the Mets are a terrible road team. They're 9 games under 500 on the road and 17 over at home. So my presumption was correct. I guess their closer doesn't come out to special light shows or whatever when they're on the road. So it doesn't work.
although
for
it'd
them.
be cool if you did. Can you imagine if they had just like a traveling setup, like a band on
Right.
tour? And
Right.
we'll play in your little stadium, friends, but when our closer comes out, we get to shut the lights down. And
So why don't the Cubs or somebody do this? When the other team's closer comes out, why don't you do like kaleidoscope lights and play like circus music, like clown music when they come out, like do 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 do, like literally clown music, and see if that doesn't get in their head a little bit.
I always find it funny because, as the home crowd, you're playing that because you want everybody to get psyched up. But
Yep.
if you go to some of the stadiums that have really good game day production and do a lot of that, they also have a production for, okay, we're down by 1 and it's headed to the bottom of the 9th. Let's go win this. And it's not the same signature thing attached to one player, but it's the exact same vibe. Either
Right.
way, you're just spending that half inning getting the fans all pumped up. It's just in one case, it feels like this very special thing for one special guy. And in the other case, it's just, yeah, of course you're going to play a hype video or whatever. So
The Marlins actually do a really good job of it. The only problem for the Marlins is the old adage, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it still make a noise?
There's a team named the Chicago Cubs who will have more money to invest into game day operations because they've raised their ticket price again for the 2026
About
season.
time. Do they stick with the inflationary the chain CPA or CPI of like 2.1% or something?
As
So they
soon
go with
as
inflation?
now that they feel good about this playoff spot, knowing that they will be in the playoffs in some form or fashion, they immediately raise the prices on these tickets, which is
Did they triple? They didn't triple like inflation, did they?
5 to 8%, depends where you're sitting. But
they did, huh?
boy,
Maybe
oh boy,
quadruple.
It's
all
already
goes back into the team, Jeremy. It all goes back into the team.
So I've heard.
Yeah.
So I've heard.
Do you know a beer and a hot dog at Wrigley Field is now more than $30?
Jeez Louise.
I was there Wednesday. I saw it with my own eyes.
It's a little bit of a broken system. And not all of that is the Cubs' fault, of course, but they are the worst transgressors in the entire sport, so we should make sure that that's clear too.
Right. There are other bad actors, but they're just the worst.
They are.
They are head of the bad actor crime family when it comes to charging a lot of money for tickets and concessions and not sharing that in player salaries. Yeah.
It's I will say, obviously they're doing something that we would be very upset about if we knew all the details in terms of what percentage of their revenue makes up next year's baseball operations budget. But their budget for every year is determined by their game day revenue in the previous year. So in a way, that money does go back to the more money they make, the more money they will spend. My question is
so small. Yeah.
Exactly. If this year they weren't willing to go over the competitive balance tax, so that was like $240 million was a very hard line. I don't think it needed to be. Certainly, they're going to make a lot more money this year than they did last year, and they'll certainly make a lot more money next year than they did this year.
You gotta give them credit. They were really careful about not making that $240 million. In fact, they're like, we're not even going to get $200 million. We're going to be so far below we can't accidentally into it like we did last year. Jeremy and I were talking about this over the weekend. I finally had this epiphany when I was walking. I feel like an idiot finally figuring it out. I'm like, why did the Cubs trade Bellinger and give away all his money and not sign anybody with it? Because they got Tucker or whatever. The payroll went down from the year before. I'm like, why did they do all of this? And then they said, well, we'll spend it at the trade deadline. They didn't spend any of it at the trade deadline, really. Why did this happen? And then it dawned on me, it happened because there was no way on God's green earth they were going to hit that luxury tax number for the second year in a row. And they hit it the year before by mistake because they screwed up they got too close to the edge and they whoops, sorry, we went over by 25 cents. And they basically, I didn't say they tanked the season, but they basically they refused to build as strong a club as they could. Even it's not the financial limitations of their revenue or any, like you're saying, like any of that. It was solely because they didn't want to hit that second year of the revenue cap or whatever you call it, luxury tax.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of what part of this is a Tom Ricketts problem and what part of it's a Jed Hoyer problem there.
Yeah.
They have more money to spend than Jed successfully spent, which is why Justin Turner's making $6 million this year.
Right.
Like there was not a $5.5 million bid they needed to beat. Jed sort of needed to spend his budget and ran out of ways when he didn't land Alex Bregman. So, that they weren't going to go too close to that threshold lest they stumble.
They weren't come anywhere near that threshold is what happened.
Exactly. But they could have still come a lot closer.
Sure.
It's just Jed didn't successfully win. He didn't win in the room for Bregman or Tanner Scott or,
it's the kind of performance that'll get you an extension.
Yeah, it sure will. It sure will. As long as, just have a good enough season that we can raise ticket prices and we'll keep you around for a while.
We're going to make the playoffs. We're going to raise ticket prices, extensions all around. And you stayed under the luxury tax, which is really what your bonus is tied to and what your extension is tied to. Because, they weren't 2 years in a row, then you got to pay more. And they were going to do everything in their power to stay as far away from that as possible, and mission accomplished.
And they, I think, partially, through effort and partially through luck, were able to, they had several, like we've talked about this now, the PCA and the Hortons and the Shaws of the world. There was an expectation that they would be successful, but I don't think if you gave the sodium pentothal to these guys, they would say, these are the years they were going to have, right? I mean, I think a lot of that was fortuitous circumstances. If you use, like, was it Fangraphs that does the percentage chances that you'll, or maybe it's Zaborski, but this is your range of numbers, low end to high end, and a lot of these guys are hitting their high end for sure. The entire catching core, for example.
Right.
Michael Bush, for example, Matt Shaw in the second half. Nico Horner is hitting like 460 with men on base or whatever, I mean, other than Hap, pretty much everybody is either performing or overperforming expectations in the lineup. And the pitchers too, frankly, the starting pitchers, right? If I told you that this was the season that Boyd and Colin Ray and Horton and we're going to have, you'd be like, I don't know. That seems pretty optimistic, right? But
yeah, I mean, they made a lot of good decisions this winter and over the last couple of years. It's just, I think this is a good team that does deserve to think of itself and behave the way that other teams near the top of the league behave when it comes to setting ticket prices for next year. It's just, one thing the Ricketts might have taken into account was that they already had the most expensive tickets in baseball. So maybe that hike didn't need to be quite so lofty. I don't know.
They're definitely a team that could be a great team, right? That's the frustration. With a little bit more investment.
Yeah. The team will go on the road next week at San Francisco, at Colorado. The Brewers just played the San Francisco Giants and lost 2 of 3. The Colorado Rockies are terrible. That's a team you need to sweep. Matt, I'm sure you were following the Brewers and Giants series here. With the Giants coming up, what are your feelings about the Cubs in San Francisco?
The Giants are what they have been for several years now. It's basically since the start of 2022, they're very close to just being a 500 team all the time, which is a dangerous sort of team to play at this time of year, especially when you have to go to their park, which is it's 2 time zones away, and it's got all its quirks. We know that park well. They're dangerous. They'll make it difficult. I wouldn't be shocked if the Cubs lose the series. You could still have just a really, really, really good road trip if you lose 2 out of 3 in San Francisco, but go take care of business in Colorado. We've obviously seen them not take care of business in Colorado 2 years in a row when it really mattered late in the season. So,
oh my God, last year was a shop of horrors that September.
Yes, it was.
Series at the end of September, they blew every single one of those games after having big leads. Shamefully.
And the Giants, by the way, they got to the Brewers bullpen 3 times in a row this weekend. Only resulted in 2 wins, but they got to Milwaukee's pen, and that's how they won those games. So it's going to be tense. It's going to be, I think some of your listeners are going to go to bed before the ends of those games, and that will be good for your mental health this week. Get up and check the box score, because otherwise you're not going to sleep well. You're going to get to bed late. You're going to get to bed angry. But I think they've also got a chance to go in and take 2 out of 3. I think it's going to be Boyd, Imanaga.
It is
off that
Boyd,
series.
Colin Ray, and Imanaga.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, you can win that series, and then if you win
Verlander
that,
and Webb, though, I mean, on the other end.
Yeah, that's true. It's a dangerous team because they're not a bad team. They're deceptive because you start looking at the calendar and you're only really assigning extra weight to those series against other potential playoff teams, and the Giants aren't that. but they've got a lot of high-end talent. They've got Rafael Devers. They've got Verlander, whatever's left of Verlander, but he's been better of late for them. They've got Logan Webb. They've got some pretty nasty dudes in the bullpen, which shouldn't shock anyone. When's the last time the Giants didn't have some pretty nasty dudes in the bullpen? But
after we stole Rod Beck from them, probably.
Yeah.
Shooter.
Yeah. So it'll be a good series.
Predictions for the week.
Can we just say about the Colorado series? I think the Cubs, I can see a situation where Jameson Taillon gives up 6 earned runs and the Cubs still win that game.
Yes.
This isn't a side. There's a lot of room in that ballpark for his fly balls to be to go, I guess. They don't have to go over the wall. They can go into gaps. PCA is going to really – that's a series where you want PCA playing all 3 games every inning, right? Because he's got a lot of running to do.
Well, remember, that's where PCA debuted in 23, and he made 2 fantastic catches in that first series because
he will make 2 fantastic catches in this series. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Pat, we'll start with you. 6 games.
I'm going to go conservative. I'm going to say 4-2 for the Cubs this week.
4-2.
Picking up another game, if not 2 games on the Brewers this week. I mean, there's a chance that the Cubs will be 3 games back when we wake up on Labor Day.
Matt, what about you this week? 6 games.
I'll also say 4-2. I'm less bullish than Pat, just in that I am not as the figurative clinch is not sold in my head quite yet. But I do think they can take care of business, finish out the trip, and it would be a 7-2 trip. I mean, if you go 7-2 on a West Coast swing, you just checked off a big chunk of the calendar and feel really, really good about it. So
it's unanimous 4-2 for me as well.
Then all you have to worry about after that is can the Cubs handle business against the Braves 6 times? A team that seemingly is dead, but yet still has good players, sadly.
Well, and they've been playing not like a dead team lately, which is annoying.
Except for Strider,
of course, they're coming back to life just in time for you, but every team has that. You run into some teams at the wrong time. So
the Brewers,
the
Brewers are playing 4 against Arizona and then 3 at the Blue Jays. So not an easy stretch for the Brewers either.
Yeah. And the Cubs, heavy is the head. What do they say? Heavy is the head that wears the crown. The Cubs now are the target for everybody as the presumptive winners of the Central.
I mean, we touched on it, but we should make this clear for anyone who hasn't been as tuned in or just doesn't remember that this changed. There's no game 163 anymore.
Nope.
That's not going to happen no matter what.
It goes to the Cubs.
The difference between winning the series and losing the series against the Brewers was winning or losing the season series.
Yeah.
So it's really a 4.5 game deficit, right? The Brewers can't finish the season tied with the Cubs now if they want to win the division. A tie goes the Cubs' way without any extra games played, without any extra questions asked. So it's a big deal.
It is.
Matt, always a great time talking Cubs with you. Time flies when we're catching up with you. We'll let you go here. We're going to close the show doing a Cubs player profile on Jeromy Burnitz. So I'm going to ask you for your quick thoughts on Burnitz and then remind all of our listeners how they can find your work on the internet.
Love Jeromy Burnitz. I grew up in Northeast Wisconsin, and I would listen to Bob Uecker call Jeromy Burnitz home runs while I fell asleep. It was like counting sheep, man. Phenomenally ugly human being. Just like you don't see a lot of ball players who are ugly by normal person standards. It's an attractive industry. He's an ugly man. Replaced Sammy Sosa, which was bittersweet, of course.
That's the whole focal point of the story. Yeah, he's a transitional figure.
I will. This is the last thing that I'll say because I don't want to step on Pat's toes too much, but I don't know if you have this. Remember that Sosa, the whole kerfuffle around him leaving, made everyone very worried that the Cubs were all too me first. So in 2005, they took the names off the back of the jerseys. And Jeromy Burnitz is maybe the best player who only played his time with the Cubs without the name over his number. I don't even remember what number he wore. I can only really picture the man from the front in a Cubs uniform, but you never saw the name Burnitz across the back of a home Cubs white. So
the Cubs signed him, by the way, the day they traded Sammy Sosa.
Yeah.
Hours later.
Well, they were making a very specific aesthetic choice.
For your sake, Matt, I'll say one other thing. He is only the second player in Milwaukee history to hit 30 or more home runs in 4 straight seasons.
Yeah, I mean he was a legit slugger. The Cubs got him.
You know who the other player was, by the way?
So this was someone before him, or someone else who's come since?
Before him.
Gosh, Gorman Thomas.
That's right. Gorman Thomas.
Nice job. Gorman. Well done, sir.
Most people would probably have said Cecil Fielder, but that would be incorrect.
No.
Yeah.
So. You can't slip a Gorman Thomas past me. That's what they said about me going way back.
Yeah.
Matt, remind our listeners where they can find your work.
Northsidebaseball.com. I'm really excited about the stretch run we've got ahead. We got an excited crew of writers over there. Come check out what we're doing. Everything else that I do, you can find me on Blue Sky, matrueblood.bsky.social, and we'll talk ball that way. But check us out at Northside Baseball.
Thanks again, Matt. Always a great time.
Thanks for coming on the Victory Show.
See ya.
All right, Pat, we teased it a little bit. Let's get into our Cubs player profile this week. Jeromy Burnitz.
Jeromy Burnitz, born April of 1969, 56 years old as of right now. He was from Westminster, California, went to Oklahoma State to play college baseball. He was on Team USA in 1989 in the Intercontinental Cup. I don't have a lot of recollection of all these. We've talked about this a couple times with players. These like quasi-faux, like Olympic, pre-Olympic kind of teams back when professional players couldn't play, so it had to be amateurs. And he was one of the players who played. They did poorly, Team USA that year, but they're probably going up against grown-ups, so who knows? He was young when he did that. He was then drafted by the New York Mets with the 17th pick in the 1990 amateur draft, which was unfortunate for the Cubs because they drafted 23rd, 6 spots later. And without Burnitz on the board, the Cubs had to go in a different direction. So with their first-round pick, they went with future Cub legend and near Hall of Famer Lance Dixon, who we've talked about before on the show, who threw a couple games with the Cubs. I was at his debut, but did not pitch more than, I think, 6 innings with the team. Burnitz had a good minor league career. Baseball America ranked him the number 3 prospect in the Eastern League after being the first player in Eastern League history to have a 30-30 season. If you had told me that a player in the Eastern League, minors, had a 30-30 season, I would have made many guesses before I got to Jeromy Burnitz. He only had 74 total stolen bases in a 14-year major league career, so stealing 30 in a minor league season is a lot. He was also the number 2 prospect in the Mets system behind future Cub, catcher, family bloodlines to another Cub catcher. This person's father was a famous Cub catcher. And then this player later became a Cub and was a catcher and had a very tumultuous 2-year stretch as a catcher of the Cubs. You probably remember him as Todd Hundley.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Todd Hundley.
Yeah.
Tumultuous, to say the least.
Yeah, Randy Hundley, his father, had a more successful
Much better career, yeah.
Yeah. So Burnitz made his major league debut in 1993. Had a great season, 306 plate appearances, like half a year, 1.5 WAR, 118 OPS plus, very good. He struggled in 1994 in limited actions, so he was traded in November after the season to Cleveland for Paul Byrd and Jerry DiPoto. Jerry DiPoto probably more famous for being the general manager of the Diamondbacks, Angels, and Mariners than he is for being a baseball player. But he was traded for Burnitz. Burnitz was called up in 1995 with Cleveland, hit .571 down the stretch. And in 1996, in just 155 plate appearances, he had like a 930 OPS, 1.2 WAR, 135 OPS plus, just tore the cover off the ball. The problem was, this was the one time when you did not want to be a corner outfielder for Cleveland, because the 95-96 stretch was when they had Albert Bell and Manny Ramirez in the corners.
Yep.
Those were those teams with the Alomar brothers. Jim Thome was the third baseman, for God's sake, and there's just nowhere for Burnitz to play, right? Vizquel was the shortstop. That team was stacked. Kenny Lofton was the center fielder. On and on and on, right? So yeah, that was a rough situation to be in. So I think the Brewers, Cleveland realized that. They traded Burnitz to the Brewers for a starting pitcher named Kevin Seitzer, who then became terrible once he went to Cleveland. And meanwhile, Burnitz became very good. And from 1997 to 2001, as we talked about with Matt at the beginning of the discussion, he hit 27, 38, 33, 31, and 34 homers in those years, with RBI totals of 85, 125, 103, 98, and 100. Keep in mind, those are some pretty bad Brewers teams back then, too. That was not the high water mark of Milwaukee. That's when they first moved into that Miller Park, and we used to go up there and just bat them around like piñatas because they were so bad. And the Cubs, even when the Cubs were not great, they were better than that. He put up 15.8 WAR over those 5 seasons, was an all-star, finished in the MVP voting twice, had a really good stretch there, like the apex of his pre-Cubs career. In fact, in 1995, he started for the National League in the All-Star game after Tony Gwynn was hurt and did not attend the game. Burnitz became the first Milwaukee player to start, position player to start in an All-Star game since Paul Molitor. So it had been a while. That's how bad the Brewers were, by the way, at the time. That was also the time period when he started. The Brewers were still in the American League. They switched to the National League, I think, in the late 90s. So he got to play as a Brewer in the National League and a Brewer in the American League. A couple other fun facts. He was the first player to hit a ball into the right field upper deck at Enron Field, the old Houston ballpark. Not old Houston ballpark, the Houston Park. He also had the longest home run ever at Turner Field in Atlanta. So he could hit it. He was traded to the New York Mets in 2002 in a 10-player deal. None of the players were any good. After starting off hot in the 03 season with the Mets, they then traded. By the way, this is the Mets team that had, drafted him originally. That's why they wanted him back after they realized how good he was, probably. But unfortunately, they waited a decade to get him. Had a hot start in 03, so they immediately turned around and flipped him to the Dodgers. The Mets were in no great shape at this time either, by the way. And he finished out the year there, but wasn't that great. So he signed with Colorado in 2004, where he hit 37 homers and 110 RBIs, another 916 OPS, just a great season. 1.3 WAR, finalist in the MVP, blah, blah, blah. So after the 04 season, remember the 04 season was the year the Cubs, while Burnitz was playing well for the horrible Rockies, the Cubs had what was supposed to be the post-Bartman year, a World Series run where they got Derek Lee and they got Greg Maddux, and they had all the players, right? Nomar Garciaparra, they picked him up at the trade. They had everybody. So they were coming off of that year for 2005. But the one thing that had happened at the end of 04, as you recall, is that Sammy Sosa had apparently left the stadium during the last game early or something. And there was a lot of contention there, and it was post where he accidentally had used the wrong bat that had the balls that came out and whatever. So anyway, there was a lot of sort of anti-Sosa sentiment at the time. He was older and not doing as well. Just a lot of frustration with the Cubs in general, I think, from the fan base. So at the end of that 04 season, the Cubs decided to part ways with Sosa. They traded him. I think they traded him to Baltimore, right?
Baltimore,
and then he ended up with the Rangers after that. Mm-hmm. So they traded him to Baltimore. And then on the very same day, they signed Jeromy Burnitz to replace him, to be his fill-in. He signed a deal with the Cubs, 1 year, $4.5 million deal. He played 160 games for the Cubs. He was a real workhorse. 24 homers, 87 RBIs, 757 OPS. Not bad. Not, solid. Had 14 three-hit games for the Cubs when he was hot. That Cubs team, however, went 79 and 83. despite having Lee and Ramirez and Corey Patterson and Nomar and Maddox and Zambrano and Wood and Pryor and Dempster, actually a good closer at the time. I still, to this day, when I think back on that 04-05 stretch, I'm like, how did that team not win more games? It's really frustrating to think about, right?
Derek Lee hit 46 home runs that season.
Yeah. No, he was like an MVP. Did he win the MVP? Yeah. I mean, he drove in like 150 runs or something. I mean, it was crazy. And he had Burnitz hitting behind him. Moises Alou, right? I mean, that I don't get it. So after the season, the Pittsburgh Pirates of all team offered Burnitz a better deal. They outbid the Cubs for his services, paid him $6 million, which led the Cubs to then have to scramble and find a replacement. So they got one Jock Jones, signed him to a multi-year deal. So Burnitz only played 1 year for the Cubs, but he was the bridge between the Sosa era and the Jock Jones era. So for what it's worth. And meanwhile, Pittsburgh was bad, and I think Burnitz just after playing in front of packed houses at Wrigley just was like, I'm out of here. So that was his last season in baseball, and just kind of petered out. But during his career, 14 years, he had a very good WAR. But 1,447 hits, 315 homers, 981 RBIs, 917 runs. Almost 1,000. If he had just played one more year, he probably would have hit 1,000 and 1,000 for runs and RBIs. 19.9 WAR, was over 20 until that last year at the Pirates, which went poorly. But he was always known for being a good clubhouse guy. That was like a big thing with him. And he was funny and could give a good interview with the press, and was good with the players in the clubhouse. And I think after the Sosa situation, like Matt was saying, with the no uniform names on the back of the jerseys, he was a perfect kind of guy to have in that clubhouse and helped relax them, such that without him, instead of going 79 and 83, they probably would have gone 75 and 87. But he was probably worth about 4 runs and just on character. He was once asked in 2002 about steroids, and here's what he had to say. If somebody wants to do it, that's their decision. Whatever you think is fine. But when I'm 50 and I'm running around with my kids in the backyard and you're dead, that's your deal. Today, Jeromy Burnitz and his wife live in California with their 3 children. He's retired from the game professionally, and he chases them around in their backyard. So
great to hear. Jeromy Burnitz, it's wild. That 05 team, he was the 3rd highest home run total on the team. It was Lee with 46, Ramirez with 31, Burnitz with 24. Michael Barrett was 16 behind him. So
was that the year that Michael Barrett beat up AJ Pierzynski?
It's one of those years. There wasn't many Michael Barrett years, so it's got to be one of those years.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jeromy Burnitz, very. It's funny. You forget about his stints with the Pirates and some of those other teams that you mentioned along the way. But great choice. Good to catch up. Next week, our patrons from patreon.com/Wrigleyville Nation. They're the ones who keep us ad-free every single week on this podcast. They get to choose, and they chose Mark Grace, my favorite Cub as a boy growing up. He will be our next player profile. So thank you to our patrons for supplying another great pick.
You knew it was time, right? Because we'd already had Derek Lee and we'd had Bill Buckner and all the other sort of legendary first basemen of the modern era. So
we have a couple more calls to action, then we're going to wrap it up and call it a podcast. We mentioned it's cooler in the evenings. You may want to put on a sweatshirt. We have sweatshirts for sale. We have T-shirts for sale. We've got mugs. We've got all kinds of stuff. If you're watching the YouTube video right now, you can see me wearing a Wrigleyville Nation T-shirt. If you want to pick yourself up a T-shirt, sweatshirt, mug, hat, we've got shorts, I think, too. There's all kinds of stuff out there. Go take a look at the store. You can do that at wrigleyvillenation.com. Click on store, or any of our social media channels at Wrigleyville Nat. It's pinned to the top of any of our social media channels or in the link tree on Instagram as well. It'll take you to the store where you can shop some merchandise. Helps us keep the lights on here. Every little bit helps. So if you want to support the show, that's a great way to do it. If you can't support the show financially in these times, we understand that as well. Make sure you go to that YouTube channel I just mentioned. Search for Wrigleyville Nation Podcast. Give us a subscribe and like. It's a free way to support the show. Helps us work the algorithm so other Cub fans can find the show. And with that, we are going to wrap it up and call it a podcast. Matt Trueblood, always a great time. Pat, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeromy.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.